Okay, so here's another example of these absolute values that are not in our form just yet, but I can get there. So I realize I could factor out a negative 3 from this. If I factor out a negative 3, I'd be left with x plus 2, right? Yeah, okay, good. Now, could I have factored out just a positive 3? You can, but then it's not going to get you in the form that you want. Because remember, what I ultimately want is I want it to look like this. Just a plain old positive x. So if you didn't factor out a negative 3, it's not going to look like that. So in order to make it look the way that I want to take out a negative 3 because my goal is to get the coefficient of that x to be a positive 1. All right? And now I use the power of absolute values, and I'm going to split this up. So I'm going to have the absolute value of negative 3 times the absolute value of x plus 2. So now when I rewrite it, my function becomes absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3 times x plus 2. And now I know what to do, because now it's in the form that I was expecting. How'd you do? Did you get it? Okay, good. So it's interesting how ones like this can turn into a positive 3. Because I wish I had asked you before we even tried it, if you thought this would be right side up or upside down. My suspicion would be a lot of you would think that it's upside down because you see a negative, but as it turns out, when we put in that absolute value, it changes everything. So let's go ahead and figure out what A is. 3, H is negative 2, and K is 0 this time. So my vertex is at negative 2, 0. Right-hand slope is 3, so left is negative 3. And then once we graph, it should be pretty easy. Negative 2, 0. Slope of 3 this time. So a even more narrow graph. And there we have it. Now, when we get to 5, though, this one's really interesting.
A is negative.
Well,
Well, no. We have to distribute the negative first.
I don't really know what A is yet, because I don't really know what A is until I write it in the form that matches this, right? Then I can look at it and tell you what A is. But right now, I kind of can't because this coefficient of x isn't a 1. But I'm hitting a snag because I can't factor out a 2. Or can I? Why can't I?
You can't. Because 2 doesn't go into 1.
Doesn't it?
Well, a half of the time.
Which is a half. You can.
Well, it's not
You
whole
can.
number.
I like to call it force factoring. So even though we don't typically think of 2 as not a factor of 1, but I certainly can, like if I really want to, I can force out a 2. I'm just going to be left with a half. Doesn't that make sense, right? So watch what's going to happen this time. I'm going to, let's zoom in here. All right, so this negative out in front, that's just going to stay there. That has really nothing to do with what's going on inside my absolute value. So that's just kind of hanging out there. On the inside now, I'm going to force out a 2, and then what will be left? It'll be x, and then what?
Minus a half.
Minus a half. And if you are not sure about it, you're just doing 2 divided by each of these things. But if you're ever shaky, just redistribute that back in. Wouldn't you get 2x minus 1? Yeah, okay. So you're just taking whatever that leading coefficient is, and you have to divide each term by it. So that's how I got here. And then I still have this plus 4 on the end. And then, I'm still going to use that idea of breaking up my absolute value. So again, this negative is sort of just hanging out in front. So I have negative absolute value of 2 times absolute value of x minus a half plus 4. I'm not really in line with what I'm doing over here, but that's okay. My rewrite has gone a little long. But now I'm ready, because now what is, yeah, it's a -2. The absolute value of 2 is 2, and then that negative is still there. So A is going to be a -2. Then I have my absolute value, x minus a half, plus 4. So now I'm ready. Now it looks like the right form. I have all the pieces. It's just that I'm going to deal with a fraction. Oh well. Such is life. So A is -2. H is
Positive half.
+1/2, and that leaves K to be
4.
4. So my vertex is at a half 4. Right hand side -2, left hand side +2. Okay, my graph is up at the top of the other side. Okay, so if we graph all these things, just be careful. With your vertex at a half, 4, it's just not going to be at a lattice point. A half, 4, right about there. And then be careful when you're doing your slopes. I have to go down 2 whole boxes to the right 1 whole box. And there you have it.